Everyone says bone broth is the secret to staying strong as you age, but what if that's completely wrong? What if the very thing people rely on for muscle health is barely helping at all? Well, the real muscle-saving foods are sitting in your kitchen right now. After 40, you can lose up to 8% of your muscle every decade, and most people don't notice until everyday things start feeling harder. Getting up from a chair, climbing stairs, carrying groceries, that silent muscle loss is called sarcopenia. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what to eat to fight it, rebuild strength, and keep your body powerful for years to come. Most people reach for bone broth thinking they're doing something powerful for their muscles, especially as they get older and start worrying about weakness or muscle loss. Bone broth has built a reputation as a kind of miracle food, and to be fair, it does have some valuable nutrients. It's rich in collagen, gelatin, and certain minerals that can support joint comfort, skin elasticity, and gut health. The problem is that none of those benefits directly translate into building or preserving muscle mass, which is exactly what you need to fight sarcopenia. Muscle tissue has very specific nutritional requirements, and bone broth simply doesn't meet them in a meaningful way. The main issue comes down to protein quality. Not all proteins are created equal, especially when it comes to stimulating muscle growth. Your muscles rely on what are called essential amino acids, which are the building blocks your body cannot make on its own and must get from food. Among these essential amino acids, one stands out above the rest for triggering muscle repair and growth: leucine. Leucine acts like a switch that turns on muscle protein synthesis, the process where your body rebuilds and strengthens muscle fibers. Without enough leucine, that switch barely flips, no matter how much total protein you think you're getting. Collagen, which is the primary protein in bone broth, is very low in leucine and also lacks sufficient amounts of several other essential amino acids that makes it an incomplete protein for muscle building purposes. When you drink bone broth, you are consuming protein, but it's the kind your muscles can't efficiently use to grow or maintain strength. It's a bit like trying to build a brick wall with a truckload of sand, but very few actual bricks. You have material, but not the right material for the job. This becomes even more important as you age because your body becomes less responsive to small amounts of protein. This age-related change, known as anabolic resistance, means your muscles need a stronger signal to start rebuilding. That signal comes from a combination of resistance exercise and a sufficient dose of high-quality, leucine-rich protein. Bone broth just doesn't deliver that dose. You could sip it daily and still fall short of the amino acid levels required to properly stimulate muscle protein synthesis. That doesn't mean bone broth is useless. It can still be part of a balanced diet and may complement other protein sources. But it should never be treated as your primary strategy for preserving or building muscle. If someone relies heavily on bone broth while neglecting complete protein sources like eggs, dairy, fish, poultry, or legumes combined properly, they may actually accelerate muscle loss without realizing it. Over time, that can contribute to weakness, poorer balance, and a higher risk of falls and loss of independence, especially in older adults who already face a natural decline in muscle mass. One of the biggest misconceptions about protein and aging is the idea that you need less of it as you get older. In reality, the opposite is true. As the body ages, it becomes less efficient at using protein to build and repair muscle, a phenomenon known as anabolic resistance. This means that the same small portions of protein that may have worked in your 20s or 30s are no longer enough to send a strong signal to your muscles to maintain their size and strength. Without realizing it, many people gradually reduce their protein intake over the years, often eating lighter meals, skipping protein at breakfast, or relying more on carbohydrates and convenience foods. This creates the perfect environment for muscle loss to accelerate. Muscle tissue is constantly being broken down and rebuilt in a dynamic process. When you are younger, this balance is easier to maintain. With age, the breakdown side can begin to outpace the rebuilding side unless you actively support the process. High-quality protein becomes the key nutritional tool for tipping that balance back in your favor. Not just any protein will do, though. Your muscles require all 9 essential amino acids in adequate amounts, especially leucine, which acts as the primary trigger for muscle protein synthesis. Without enough leucine in a meal, the body may not fully switch on the rebuilding process, even if total calories are sufficient. This is why protein quality matters just as much as quantity. Animal-based proteins like eggs, dairy, poultry, fish, and lean meats naturally contain all essential amino acids in proportions that are highly effective for muscle maintenance. Certain plant-based combinations can also work, but they often require more planning and larger portions to achieve the same amino acid profile. As people age and appetite sometimes decreases, choosing protein-dense foods becomes even more important so that each meal delivers a meaningful dose. Another critical factor is how much protein is eaten at one time. Research suggests that older adults often need around 30 to 40 grams of high-quality protein in a single meal to maximally stimulate muscle protein synthesis. Smaller amounts may still help, but they may not fully overcome an anabolic resistance. This is a major shift from older dietary advice that focused on minimal protein intake. Instead of fearing protein, aging adults benefit from viewing it as a protective nutrient that supports strength, mobility, and independence. Failing to meet these higher protein needs doesn't just affect muscle size, it can lead to reduced strength, slower recovery from illness or injury, and a greater risk of falls and frailty. Muscle plays a central role in metabolism balance and the ability to perform everyday tasks. By consistently including generous portions of high-quality protein at meals, older adults give their bodies the raw materials needed to preserve muscle tissue, support repair, and maintain physical resilience over time. One of the most powerful shifts you can make for preserving muscle as you age has nothing to do with exotic superfoods or complicated meal plans, and everything to do with how you distribute your protein throughout the day. Many people unknowingly follow a pattern where breakfast is very low in protein, lunch is moderate at best, and dinner is the only meal that contains a substantial amount. While that might feel normal, it is not ideal for stimulating muscle maintenance and growth, especially in older adults facing anabolic resistance. Your body does not store protein the same way it stores carbohydrates or fat. There is no large reserve of amino acids waiting around to be used later. Instead, muscle protein synthesis is a process that gets turned on and off in response to meals, particularly meals that contain enough high-quality protein and the amino acid leucine. When you eat a protein-rich meal, muscle building is stimulated for a few hours, and then the effect fades. If the next meal is too low in protein, you miss another opportunity to trigger that muscle-building response. This is where the idea of aiming for about 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal becomes so important. That amount is generally enough to reach what researchers call the leucine threshold, the level needed to fully activate muscle protein synthesis in older adults. Eating 10 or 15 grams of protein at a meal may help a little, but it often does not provide a strong enough signal to overcome anabolic resistance. By hitting that higher target at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you give your muscles multiple chances throughout the day to repair and strengthen themselves. Think about a typical low-protein breakfast like toast, cereal, or fruit. Even though these foods can be part of a healthy diet, they do very little to support muscle. Compare that with a breakfast built around protein, such as eggs with Greek yogurt, cottage cheese with nuts and seeds, or a smoothie made with whey protein and milk. That single change can dramatically increase the total protein you consume, and more importantly, ensure that your day starts with a meaningful muscle-building signal. The same principle applies to lunch and dinner. Instead of letting protein be an afterthought, it should be the anchor of the meal. This might look like a generous portion of chicken, fish, tofu, beans paired with complementary proteins, or dairy-based options. Spacing these protein-rich meals roughly 3 to 5 hours apart helps keep muscle protein synthesis stimulated multiple times across the day, rather than relying on one large evening meal to do all the work. Over time, this consistent pattern of evenly distributed protein intake can help slow muscle loss, support strength gains when combined with resistance training, and improve overall physical function. It is a simple but highly effective strategy that aligns with how the body actually uses protein, making each meal an opportunity to reinforce muscle health and long-term independence. Protein might provide the raw materials for muscle, but without the right signal telling your body to use those materials, very little actually changes. That signal comes from resistance training. Muscles are incredibly adaptive tissues, but they are also efficient. If they are not challenged, the body sees them as metabolically expensive and gradually let them shrink. This is why simply eating more protein without moving your muscles against resistance is not enough to stop sarcopenia. Exercise is the message, and protein is the supply. Both are required for meaningful results. Resistance training works by placing controlled stress on muscle fibers. This stress creates tiny amounts of damage at the microscopic level, which sounds negative but is actually the trigger for growth and repair. When your body repairs those fibers, it rebuilds them stronger and thicker so they can better handle that challenge next time. Over time, this process increases strength, preserves muscle mass, and improves the ability to perform everyday tasks. Without this stimulus, even a high-protein diet cannot fully activate muscle-building pathways. One of the biggest myths is that resistance training is only for young people or serious athletes. In reality, it becomes more important with age. As muscle naturally declines, strength training acts like a powerful countermeasure, telling your body that muscle tissue is still needed. The exercises do not have to be extreme to be effective. Movements like standing up from a chair repeatedly, wall or countertop push-ups, step-ups on a stair, resistance band rows, or lifting light dumbbells can all provide enough challenge to stimulate adaptation when done consistently. Intensity matters more than complexity. For a muscle to respond, it needs to be challenged beyond what it is used to. That might mean the last few repetitions of an exercise feel difficult while still being done with good form. This level of effort signals the body to hold on to muscle and build more. If an exercise feels too easy, the stimulus is too low to drive change. Gradually increasing resistance, repetitions, or difficulty over time keeps progress moving and prevents plateaus. Another key benefit of resistance training is that it improves how efficiently your body uses the protein you eat. After a strength workout, muscles become more sensitive to amino acids, meaning the same protein-rich meal has a greater muscle-building effect. This creates a powerful synergy between nutrition and exercise. Instead of working separately, they amplify each other. This is especially valuable in older adults, where maximizing each opportunity for muscle protein synthesis becomes increasingly important. Beyond muscle size and strength, resistance training supports balance, joint stability, bone density, and metabolic health. Stronger muscles help protect joints and reduce the risk of falls, while also improving blood sugar control and overall energy levels. It reinforces independence by making daily activities feel easier and safer. When combined with adequate protein intake, regular resistance exercise becomes one of the most effective tools available for slowing physical decline and maintaining function. With age, muscle is often thought of as something purely cosmetic, something that affects how toned or fit a person looks, but its role in the body goes far deeper than appearance. Muscle is a vital organ of longevity and independence. It acts as a metabolic engine, a stabilizer for joints, a protector against injury, and a reserve that helps the body withstand stress, illness, and aging. When muscle mass declines significantly, the effects ripple through nearly every system in the body, increasing vulnerability and reducing quality of life. One of the most important roles muscle plays is in maintaining strength for everyday activities. Simple movements like getting up from a chair, climbing stairs, carrying groceries, or reaching overhead all depend on adequate muscle function. When muscle weakens, these tasks become harder and more exhausting, often leading people to move less. That reduction in activity further accelerates muscle loss, creating a downward spiral that can lead to frailty and dependence on others for basic needs. Muscle also plays a key role in balance and fall prevention. Strong muscles in the legs, hips, and core help stabilize the body and react quickly to changes in position or uneven surfaces. As muscle mass and strength decline, balance becomes less reliable and the risk of falls increases. Falls are a major cause of injury and loss of independence in older adults, often leading to fractures, hospitalizations, and long recovery periods that can further reduce mobility. Preserving muscle is one of the most effective ways to lower this risk. Metabolically, muscle tissue is highly active. It helps regulate blood sugar by absorbing glucose from the bloodstream, which supports better insulin sensitivity and lowers the risk of type 2 diabetes. More muscle mass is associated with a healthier metabolism and better weight management, even at rest. When muscle declines, metabolic health can suffer. making it easier to gain fat and harder to maintain energy levels. This can contribute to a cycle of fatigue and inactivity that further worsens muscle loss. Muscle also acts as a kind of reserve during times of stress, such as illness, surgery, or injury. During these periods, the body often breaks down tissue to meet increased energy and protein demands. Individuals with more muscle mass have a larger reserve to draw from, which can support recovery and improve resilience. Those with very low muscle mass may struggle more during recovery, losing strength rapidly and taking longer to regain function. Perhaps most importantly, maintaining muscle supports confidence and independence. Being able to move freely, perform daily tasks without assistance, and engage in hobbies or social activities contributes to mental well-being and overall life satisfaction. Muscle is deeply connected to the ability to live life on your own terms. Protecting and building it through proper nutrition and resistance training is not about vanity, but about preserving freedom, capability, and quality of life for years to come.